Whether you're cruising the seven seas, jetting off to your favorite holiday destination, or even just relaxing in the hotel, there's one thing us home labbers do more than anything: browse the web, connect back home. But how do we do this securely and at minimal cost to ourselves? Generally, this involves using a travel router so that we can share the same internet connection we purchase with all of our devices. The other thing that you're going to want to do is take your travel router with you in style. And this is GLINet's new travel gadget pouch, which is going for about £10 right now on their website. I've got my Slate 7 in here, but you can also fit in here the Muddy V2 and a few other routers as well. Comes in three colors: blue, black, and gray. I've got the black one. And I can even fit in here some cables and my power bank, which are really helpful on journeys. Another really important piece of kit is how we charge or power our Slate 7 router. Now, I have options such as power banks and different power connectors, but a really good tool I've used at the moment is the Umino 4-port USB 100-watt charger from GLInet. And I've also got the ability to power up my other devices, charge my mobile phone, my laptop, and everything else all at the same time. And this was sent over by GLInet along with the gadget bag as a sponsor to this video. The other thing is concealing your travel router, because as you know, theft is a real bug, and you're going to want to make sure you actually get it to the location you're going to. But getting down to the nitty gritty, how exactly do cruise ships, airports, planes know you're using a travel router, and how are they stopping you? And more importantly, what can you do to countermeasure this arms technological race? Depending on where you are and what networks you're connected to, most simply employ simple layer 1 detection methods: MAC addresses, host names, and captive portals. However, I have found that some organizations that shall remain unnamed, mostly cruise lines, implement multi-layer approaches and take a very hostile, dim view, because at the end of the day, internet at sea is very costly and they want to make sure they get bang for their buck. But doesn't that mean you as the consumer should also be able to do the same? Well, in my extensive traveling, I have come across layers of defenses that range from place to place, but mostly are all implemented together on cruise lines. The layer 1 is the captive portal, binding MAC addresses and host names. Countermeasures to that are the connecting with the initial device using the MAC address of that device, match the host name. Then layer 2 is the IP header TTL or HL analysis, which essentially is time to live. It basically tells the network if it's just your device connecting or if other devices are connected to that device and are sending traffic through that way as well, at which point if it analyzes that and finds that, it blocks those connections. Then you've got TCP and IP stack fingerprinting, which can be can be obfuscated via router level VPNs. They've also got deep packet inspection and VPN blocking technologies, at which point you're going to need the obfuscated VPNs as well. And in extreme cases that I have witnessed on cruise lines, especially within their networks, is what's called NBA, network behavior analysis, and possible AI analysis as we move into the future as well. All of these things can be combated and defended against with countermeasures that I'm going to show you in today's video, but I do implore you to follow all local terms, conditions, and laws, and just double check that your cruise ship or plane or hotel allows for these things. So we've already discussed all the different methods of how these cruise ships, airlines, and hotels detect your custom travel routers, and now we need to put in effect the countermeasures for this. So we're going to start at what I call DEFCON 5, which is going to be home recon. The first thing that I want you to do is download the Ping Tools app. You can get that from the Play Store And you'll see that located here on my tablet, because this is going to be relevant later on when we are at the location. The next thing that we're going to want to do is actually log in to our travel router. Now, if you go onto your device's Wi-Fi and you look for the travel router, I'm using the Slate 7, which is the GLBE 3600. Whatever travel router you're using, if it's Glinet, that's kind of the aim of what today's video is. So if you're following along with that, great. Connect to that. If you've never set it up before, go through the setup process and then come back to this video. Once you're connected, and it should say connected without internet if it's from scratch, open up a web browser and go to 192.168.8.1. That's the default IP address for your travel router. Pop in the password that you created during the setup. Now, there are a few things that we need to do to stop these commercial Wi-Fi networks identifying what device is connecting to them. And we do that through something called obfuscation. One of the very basic, simple ways to do that is to basically change the router's name. Now, as you'll see on my screen, my router is called Keith's Tab S8 Ultra, and that's mimicking the tablet that I'm using right now. How I change that is simple. If we go down to System and Advanced Settings, you might see an option to install Lucy if it's not already on there. Go and do that now. You might need to connect this up to Ethernet or Wi-Fi first to do that, but once you get there, you'll have this go to Lucy option. You click that. The username is always root, and then the password is whatever we created and logging in with on our tablet. Once we've done that, all we've got to do is go to System and then System, and you will see the option there, host name. The best thing to do is mimic the name of the device that we are on. And if I go down to settings on my Android tablet here, my Samsung Galaxy Tab S8, and go down to About Tablet, you'll see that mine's Keith's Tab S8 Ultra. There is an apostrophe in there, but the router doesn't allow us to mimic apostrophe punctuation. You can also have spaces. So we just put everything together as Keith's Tab S8 Ultra. Very basic level change in the router. There we go. We're going to click Save and Apply when we've done that, and that's part of that change. The next thing we're going to want to do is go back to the main GUI. We're going to want to go into VPN dashboard, and then what you want to do is click on Global Options, block non-VPN traffic, and also enable the option that says Services from Glinet use VPN. Those two things should be checked and applied. That will stop any router level traffic from escaping into the Wi-Fi network that we're connecting to, revealing what this device actually really is. Now, we might need to come in and undo one of those options later if things don't go exactly to plan, but I'll take you through exactly what we need to do with that. We also need to set up several VPN profiles on here for later use. So if I go into my OpenVPN client, one of the first things I'm going to do is set up NordVPN. You can actually, there are a host of different options that you can do in here, by the way. You can do like manual setup, upload plans, and I'll show you more of that later, or other service providers as well. But essentially, your NordVPN credentials, this is not going to be your email address and password, by the way. This is when you log into your NordVPN account, go to the settings and find your manual credentials, which are a lot different. And again, we might need to temporarily connect this up to Ethernet or to a Wi-Fi network before we do this, because otherwise you will just get the not login, not going to work. By entering that information in right now, it's stored ready for later, but we are going to go and try and hook up to a connection now just to get this on board. You should be able to see a list of Wi-Fi at home first. I'm just going to quickly connect up to my phone to tether. And again, these are all things that we do at home. This is DEFCON 5 Home Recon. Here we go. So that's connected. So I'm going to connections for London. It needs to be in WireGuard client. And make sure you're not swinging back and forth providers like I am when you're doing this. Is in your NordVPN profiles, it's always good to also have a obfuscated profile, which we can get from our Nord account. So if we log into our Nord account, go down to Setup Nord manually, and this is kind of where you get to see all the different available configurations for VPNs, and we want one of the obfuscated profiles. We have now obviously logged in with our Nord UK set of providers, if you will. But if we go to advanced filters and go down to obfuscated, this will give us access to VPN profiles that don't always look like VPN profiles, if that makes sense. So I'm going to UK 2189. I'm going to download the UDP obfuscated configuration file. That's downloaded. I'm going to go back to my router. The new group is going to be, again, this is on the OpenVPN client. Upload. I'm going to search for OpenVPN. And we're going to choose that zip file there. Then it's going to say, what's the username and password? Again, this is the manual credentials that you can find in your Nord account on the same page we were just on. Gives us access to an obfuscated profile. Back on our Nord account, you will find that there where it says service credentials. And that's where you get your login details for those plans. All this needs to be done before we get anywhere near our cruise ship, plane, or hotel. It just gives us more options for it. And you can see the obfuscated profiles are down there. The normal UK ones are up there. It just gives us a few options to get back home and talk back home if we need to. So we've got our VPN profiles. We've got our router hostname changed. In the VPN global proxies, we're going to block and block, or rather just make sure everything goes through the tunnel of the VPN. We also want to go to network and DNS. We want to make sure that the allow custom DNS to override VPN DNS is not on. We also want to make sure that our mode is encrypted, DNS, encryption type DNS over TLS, and DNS provider is Cloudflare. If you know what you're doing, go ahead and mess with those settings. If you don't know what you're doing and you're just following along, just follow exactly what I'm doing, and then click apply. We then want to go to system, time zone, and then we need to make sure that we're selecting where in the world we're going to be when we attempt these connections. Now, if you're going to be on a cruise ship and you're going out of Florida, for example, then you need to be finding Florida in here, or the Mediterranean, or however many hours before or behind you are, you need to set that. That is everything you need to do before you leave the house. The next step is DEFCON 4, on location deployment. So depending on where you're going, you may want to also conceal your travel router to avoid theft, because if you can't get this thing to wherever you are, then it's mission over before it's begun. And make sure that you're following all local laws as well. Now, if you haven't already purchased your Wi-Fi data plan, like I know you can do on some cruise ships, you can kind of like buy these things before you even get there. You need to make sure that we're using the device we installed ping tools on. So in my case, that's my tablet, but if you're using your phone, so be it. So let's just now picture that we're on the cruise ship, for example. Let's just say cruise ship. We're going to plug our travel router in. It's in our room. It's either on a power battery pack or it's attached to the mains, whatever. We need to disconnect from our router here and go onto Wi-Fi and find the cruise ship's Wi-Fi name, assuming you have your voucher, your code, or you've purchased your plan. In our case, that's going to be the MSC cruise ship, and it's showing us the Wi-Fi name is MSC29167. So we're going to connect to that. So we've clicked on the Wi-Fi for the cruise ship, and it's saying you need to sign into this network. So we're going to click sign in. It's going to pop up saying, might be a security threat, blah, 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 continue anyway. This opens up the hotspot portal for the cruise ship. Now, this could be your airplane, this could be in the hotel, whatever. And I just want to make the distinction here that we are now connecting on our phone or on our tablet. This part of the process, we are not connecting via our travel router just yet. The initial connection must take place either on your phone or on your tablet. It must have an initial device first, whichever device you install those ping tools onto, preferably. And you'll probably either be able to purchase your plan through here or use a voucher that you already have, in which case we already have a voucher. So we're going to enter those details now. We are now connected to the ship's internet. Now, to quickly verify that, we can open a new tab and go to Google. And yes, indeed, we are connected to the internet. Great stuff. Now, going back over to our Wi-Fi, We're going to hit the cog. We're going to click View More, and we're going to take down a few details. You need to write these down or put them on your phone somewhere, but make sure you get this exactly. The SSID name, which is the name of the Wi-Fi we just connected to. In our case, that's MSC29167. Write that down. Security type, currently none. That's fine. If yours has got WPA3 or WPA2, write it down. Whatever it says in that box security, write it down. Then scroll down and make note of the following. MAC address. In our case, that's a D0, 04, B0, B5, A7, 0B. Write it down. IP address, 192.168.15.91. Write it down. Once you've got those details, head over to Ping Tools, which will analyze the network. And you'll see that we're connected to an IP address in the middle there. That's the access point IP address. In your case, it might show a load of 10s, 2s, whatever it is. Mine's currently 192.168.15.1. We're going to tap on that. That's going to give us some more information. We need to write down the gateway address, the DNS1 address, and the netmask address. Get all that information written down because we're going to need to use it to connect to our travel router next. Now, here comes the important part. Now we've written all that information down, we can go back to Wi-Fi. And what we're going to do is hit the cog next to the ship's Wi-Fi, and we're going to click the forget button. It is really important we do this, because if we don't do this, then the travel router will connect to the network using the same credentials as we've just implemented now. The detection systems on board will notice that both of them are connecting using the same credentials and therefore block both. We don't want that. That's disastrous. So we're going to forget. Effectively, we're now cut off from the ship. What we're instead going to do is go over to our travel router again. Now back on our Slate 7. We're going to re-log in. We're going to also make sure on repeater options, allow switching to other saved networks is turned off. If you can't get it up there, you'll have repeater down here, and you can also click the cog there. We're going to switch network. We are not going to select the Wi-Fi network for the ship in this field. We're going to instead hit join other network. Now, as we made note earlier on, we're going to pop in here the ship Wi-Fi SSID, which in our case was MSC 29167. The security type was none. We are not going to enable login over public hotspots because we've already done this part with the phone. With Mac mode, we're going to be cloning. Lucky for us, that's the device that we're already on. If you were setting this up on a different device to what you connected to the Wi-Fi initially, you'd need to enter manually in the MAC address field there, the MAC address that was used at the time. Really careful because obviously Android phones occasionally do create random MAC addresses, so make sure you capture the correct MAC address at the time you signed up. Then down here, we are going to put in the manually set static IP. So 192.168.15.92. 91. Be careful you don't get caught out. The net mask, the gateway was the same IP address but with a 1 on the end. And the DNS server will be the same as the gateway. Now we move on to DEFCON 2, Special Forces Tactics. The next important parts of this are as follows. The TTL and the HL. TTL is time to live and HL is hop limit. What those both represent basically is the network's ability to detect if it's traffic from the device connected to it, i.e. just the travel router or i.e. just your phone, or are other devices sending traffic through the travel router, revealing that it is in fact a travel router. So on Android phones, iOS, Apple, things like that, most phones, the setting is going to be 64 in both fields. On Windows devices or Windows desktops, laptops, things like that, it should be 128. If after setting this up, it doesn't work for us, we can come back and change this to the alternate, either 128 if you use 64 or 64 if you use 128. Essentially, what this does, by the way, is normally if we hadn't set this, the router would appear to be number 64. And then when we connected our device to our travel router, which then sent traffic to the Wi-Fi network, we'd appear as 63. The network, as we discussed earlier, identifies that that now means clearly we're using a travel router, and therefore will block that connection. And we can't have that. So 6464, hop limit is essentially the same thing as TTL, but it's for IPv6. Because a lot of networks these days use both, we're going to set both. And that's it. So SSID name, make sure it's the exact same, obviously, because we need to connect to it. Security type was none at the time. MAC we're cloning. It's going to be the MAC address of the device we're using that we signed up with. And we initially are going to be using that IP address. We might come back in here later and turn off manually set IP, static IP, if we get connection issues later on, because the IP can change from time to time, especially on a cruise ship or a plane. But yeah, apart from that, that looks like a great first initial setup. So we're going to hit apply here. And what this is now doing is it's telling our travel router to connect to the cruise ship's Wi-Fi or the hotel Wi-Fi or plane Wi-Fi using the exact, and I mean exact, setup details that had already been authenticated. If we pull this off, it should basically believe that we are the travel route, that we are the phone instead of a travel router. You've just got to make sure that it doesn't swing across to another Wi-Fi like mine currently has back to my phone. So I'm going to turn my phone's hotspot off at the moment, and we're connecting back to our travel router. It does take a few minutes for everything to kind of synchronize back up. So it says connected without internet. That's perfectly fine. I'm going to quickly do a refresh the page, and it's looking good. So we are connected up. It's a lot faster than I thought it would be, because sometimes at this moment in time, you can get this disconnecting a couple of times over the first 5 or 10 minutes. Don't be freaked out if yours hasn't connected up straight away like mine has. It's always the same, isn't it? You watch a YouTube video and it all works, but yours doesn't. Well, give it some time. It's got the MAC address, the SSID, the gateway, the IP address, the net mask. Everything is now matched up to this cruise ship's hotspot. So that's great. The next thing we want to do before we let all our friends and family connect to our travel router, because that's going to send a lot of traffic through here that's going to look very dodgy coming off a Samsung phone, especially if you've got family or friends that have iPhones, for example. This cruise ship might have very sophisticated AI or deep packet inspection that's looking at this and going, right, that's a Samsung device. The MAC address is coming up Samsung. The initial traffic was Samsung, but all of a sudden we've got Apple Relay connecting to this, or we've got updates from Windows computers. Well, that's going to give away straight away that you're on a travel router, and will likely, in all likelihood, block that access. And we don't want that. Now, we're connected up, everything's working, and it's showing that it is connected. There's that turquoise color there next to the ship's Wi-Fi name denotes that the router has successfully connected to the network. But you're saying, Keith, why isn't Google loading? Well, don't forget, we selected in our VPN options in the global settings block non-VPN traffic, and we don't have a VPN turned on right now. So absolutely no traffic is going to this network, which is exactly what we asked it to do. So all we've got to do to get internet access on this is turn on one of our VPN profiles. Make sure IP masquerading is turned on there as well, because this option, when enabled, when clients' devices on the LAN send their IP packets, the router replaces the source IP address with its own. So that's good. Yes, there we go. We're connected. And there we go. Our traffic is still working. Just go to nordvpn.com. Top of the screen there, you'll see that your ISP is Cloud Provider Limited. Your status is protected. And that just means that we are actually using a NordVPN server. Using the details we used initially to connect our phone, we've implemented all the different DEFCON levels there. The nuclear option being the encryption of a VPN. We've mimicked the host name. We've put in the IP addresses of the net mask. And just to throw out there, just in case you come back to your cabin later on or your hotel room later on and it's not working, chances are the network has dropped your IP address and someone else is using it, because you don't get to keep the same one forever on a lot of these networks. In that case, all you've really got to do is when you come back into your router's portal here, just click modify, and then where it says manually set static IP, drop that, and then just click apply again. And then it will reconnect back up to the hotel or cruise ship network, and it will obtain itself a brand new IP address from their network, as you've just witnessed there. Again, might take a few seconds. Look, we've jumped from 15 to 99 from 91. So it might take a few seconds, and you might even have to disconnect your VPN temporarily just to re-establish the connection. I haven't, and everything looked good. So I'm going to refresh Node's page, and there we go. It's all back up and running again. We're on Node. The reason why a VPN is a good use in this scenario is not just to encrypt your network traffic. Yes, that is the primary goal. But as I mentioned earlier on, the other really important factor here is that when you're connecting up lots of your family's devices to your travel router, you don't want that cruise ship or hotel's Wi-Fi network or firewall to detect multiple devices' traffic through the one connection. Because NBA, network behavior analysis, can basically go, well, this is a Samsung device, like I said earlier, but it's got Apple Relay running on it. That doesn't sound right. Or maybe you've taken your Xbox with you on holiday, and all of a sudden it's got your Xbox traffic going through Microsoft on there and those servers, and it's going, do you know what? This is not what it should be. This is a lot of different traffic. The VPN contains everything in its tunnel, and it can't see that information. It's encrypted, and it is that method, as I describe it, DEFCON 1, the nuclear encryption method, that just polishes off all of the other methods we've just used to implement this job. So try this out. If you get to a position where you're unable to connect at this point, then, it could be that the travel router, the cruise line, the airline, the hotel is using advanced network AI to detect your travel router. And manufacturers like GLINet will need to assist users in implementing workarounds. You may also just need to simply wait a few minutes for the connection to settle. And again, like you saw me do earlier, maybe be not too restrictive on the VPN dashboard. Go into global options, drop that block non-VPN traffic and apply just for a few minutes until you establish a connection, and then come back in and reapply that block non-VPN traffic option. It's really important to keep the services from GLINet use VPN option so it doesn't send anything related to itself being the travel router to the network. Because again, network behavior analysis could just block you on the basis that it identifies it as GLINet. So again, hope you've enjoyed it. Hope that's given you a great an understanding of how this works. And I know there's a lot of people out there with a lot of questions, things like that. But there we go. The last tips I would probably give you are, conceal this. If you're in a cruise ship, a cabin, hide this travel router. You don't want it getting stolen by anyone. And also another option is on the wireless, modify it and hide the SSID, because then you can still connect to it, but no one's going to see that being broadcast out of your cabin or on the plane or in the hotel. You can hide that and do that for all the options down here. So click hide, apply, hide, apply, hide, apply. Yeah? Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.